Sleeper Wire, the only fantasy football radio show with more than a dozen multi-time, multi-league, multi-year champions. Listen to the Sleeper Wire show every Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Dash Talk.
For all today, you wanna be
Welcome to the Sleeper Wire show for Tuesday, September 26th. I am producer Steve. Max is here. Professor Chris is here. And my friends, I want you each in a word or a short phrase describe for me week 3.
Unexpected.
Interesting.
You stole mine, Max. Week 3 was certainly interesting. For me, it was like, you know, when you're playing Madden against a computer and like your team is like all 90s in the strengths, and you're playing like a all 70s team, and then the results are not what you expected. That's kind of what happened to some big name teams and some big name players this week as well. A lot of unexpected results. But if you're listening to Sleeper Wire and you followed our draft advice, you follow our start-sit advice, you probably have a pretty good team that weathered the storm. On today's show, we're going to cover news and injuries. Then we're going to go in-depth with the performances of the week. We're going to play a little game of James Brown or James Blunt, and lots of waiver wire and trade targets peppered throughout the show. So let's get started. All right, so let's go through some of the news and injuries. Biggest story at the top of our list here, because I think Professor Chris put together the notes, so he had to put this one first. Andrew Luck is targeting a Week 6 return. For me, it's just news. I don't know if I can bank on it, really, because he's coming back, he's not coming back. We don't really know what's going on, so I don't know how much stock I can put in this. But we talked last week about Hilton as a target for trading last week. I think this window might be closing soon. I don't see Hilton's value going anywhere but up. But Professor Chris, looking ahead at the Colts schedule and maybe hoping Luck comes back Week 6, are we still targeting Hilton? Are we still targeting Doyle maybe for waiver ad or trade? And if you can get Luck in a trade, is this the time to do it?
I think the window for T.Y. Hilton is passed. I mean, you saw what he did last week with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, I know the very first week that he spent with Brissett was kind of a down game. I mean, it wasn't that great. In week 2, 4 catches for 49, but that was his first game with Jacoby Brissett. Against the Browns, 7 for 153 and a touchdown. That is a huge game. I think if you wanted to buy T.Y. low, you missed that window, and now you're going to have to pay a full price for him. In regards to Doyle, I mean, good luck finding him on any waiver wires. I mean, the dude's got to be owned in most leagues, but he's still a good trade target. But I would target Luck. There's still going to be some people down on him, or maybe even some people who have maybe even dropped him because they've heard that, oh, he's not going to be back until Week 6, blah, blah, blah. But I think if the Colts can stay around, if they can finish at 2-3 going into Week 6, I still think they have a shot to get the division.
So, gut feeling, Luck's coming back Week 6 for you? You feel good about that? Confident?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, he's supposed to start, or maybe he's supposed to start practicing this week, and they've babied the hell out of Andrew Luck. They did not want anything more to happen to their franchise quarterback, so I think once he is back playing, he's going to be fine.
That's what concerned me, was the amount of time they were taking. So I don't know if I have your confidence. Max, do you have the confidence Andrew Luck comes back Week 6?
I don't, and it may not be health-related. It may be Brissett's balling out, because he was getting his Mike Vick on, and he looked really good. And I'm not saying Brissett's going to take over for Andrew Luck, because I'm not crazy. But when you have a quarterback who looks like he's on the verge of being a very good quarterback and performing for you, give your guy time. All right. Give Andrew Luck all the time in the world. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like Brissett's playing like a starting quarterback. See you Week 8 when you feel 100%, not 80%. When you feel 100%. Yeah. Let's let this backup get beat up for a while. he's performing.
Yeah, why not? While he's doing it, why not use him? All right, let's switch to the Seahawks real quick. Max, this is your team. Doug Baldwin had a little groin issue. Will have an MRI, but reports so far say it's not serious. I'm concerned mostly about what the reports say, because all week we heard Jimmy Graham wasn't looking good. He played, and he played pretty well. We heard Tyler Lockett's going to get more work. Haven't seen that. We heard Carson's going to get a huge load. He only had 11 carries this week, so I'm not sure if I can believe the reports coming out of Seattle. Are you worried at all about this Doug Baldwin thing, or are you believing that it's not a serious issue?
I'm just worried about Seattle in general. They're my team. I think the fans who listen to the show would know that by now. I don't know what's going on, and it's kind of upsetting because I know their O-line's bad, but they're making no moves to improve their O-line. Their defense, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the game. Their defense was good, I guess, but the way they acted, maybe not like them. The Seahawks defense, and I don't know, it's becoming like an unprofessional team. Richard Sherman took a few cheap shots, and it just, to me, it put a bad taste in my mouth, into the point where it's kind of like, Baldwin I'm not really worried about. It's Doug Baldwin. He's a fighter. He's like the Edelman of the Seahawks.
Right.
If he can be on the field, he'll be on the field. So if his ACL is not torn, good chance he'll play. But going forward with the Seahawks, unless they have a drastic 180 in the way they're acting on the field, I don't trust anyone on that team, because I feel like the morale's gone. They're playing angry. They're playing on tilt. They're not playing like professionals.
Right, like uncontrolled anger that's not conducive to focus. I get it.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
They when they were against Tennessee, I feel like that game was very winnable, and they were doing things. It was Tennessee's not an easy team to beat this year.
Yeah.
But they kept themselves in it, and they only lost by a small margin, but their loss was on them. They made themselves lose. They could have won that game, and their attitude and the way they acted lost it for them, because they felt defeated and they just lashed out, and it really upset. It pissed me off, to be honest.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. Well, Chris, I'm Professor Chris. I'm gonna get your input on the Seahawks a little bit later when we cover the game, because I know you got some things to say about wide receivers in general there. But let's talk about Darren Sproles. Tore his ACL and broke his arm on the same play. That is just
wild.
Bad luck. That just sucks.
Wild play.
Has any player ever done that?
I don't know.
I honestly couldn't tell you.
I don't think it's. I don't think it's something to be proud of. The guy's had a great career. He's talking about retirement before. This might be the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. He's going to have surgery, probably out for the season, I guess, with the ACL. But I got to go straight to Max on this one, because last week he was trending the hashtag "Don't Bail on Blunt," and you got to feel good about that. So tell me about that, Max. And does this affect Carson Wentz's game very much?
Twitterless Max coming at you with the hashtag "Don't Bail on Blunt."
Yeah,
I'm pretty happy about it, but I don't really think it affects Carson Wentz too much, because they run the ball. The Eagles run the ball and goal line. They're smart. They run the ball. We're giving it to Blount anyways. Wentz is a very versatile quarterback, and Blount can catch, but they have a bunch of running backs that can catch. You know what I mean? Blount was brought in there to be the tank, and I think his upside just got better. He just got, because he's now the veteran. He's now the guy, because Sproles is gone, and Smallwood's going to steal some carries. Clement's going to steal some carries, if I said his name right. But Blount's the guy you want to own as of right now, in my opinion, especially in the standard league, because he's going to be the guy who, Blount got 30 yards, but 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't see this really taking away from Carson Wentz, because the guy's a gunslinger. He makes plays happen on his feet, and I think he's proving this year that he's a really good quarterback.
Chris, are you coming around to Blunt's value after this injury?
No, not as much as Max is.
No, all right.
I think he's still going to be involved, but I think Wendell Smallwood is going to be the main back there. It may be more of like a 60-40, but I think Smallwood's going to be the one to own if you're going to pick one running back in that backfield.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about the Sam Bradford saga. Missed another game, remains week to week. Hard to know what's going on there, but and it sucks too, because he had a really good start. But Case Keenum stood in admirably this week. Is he worth an ad, guys? If you're, 2-quarterback league, I think for sure. But what if you're running with Cam Newton? Would you add Keenum as a possible streamer?
It'd be completely matchup based, like 100% for me. He played really, really well, but we've also seen him play extremely poorly. So it's hard to say. Sam Bradford, when he's healthy, he will be the starting quarterback again. So this is a true rental, where it's going to be a player that you might only have for next week. You might not even have next week.
Well, if Keenum plays the next week or two, he's got the Lions and the Bears on the schedule. So,
well, if he plays the next week or two, the Lions, I think, just proved that they can kind of hang with a pass game.
Yeah.
And they were getting beat up on the ground. So against the Lions, I expect Dalvin Cook to have a huge game. I don't think it'll be bad, but I just don't see them throwing that often versus a team that is coming out looking very good through the air. And against the Bears are kind of the same thing. The Bears looked really good this week, oddly enough, against the explosive offense of Pittsburgh. So those are two matchups I actually don't like for a quarterback. Right. And I'd much rather have Sam Bradford or someone else.
All right, Professor Chris, Diggs and Thielen didn't show any ill effects of having Case Keenum throw to him. Kyle Rudolph, not a good game. Can he bounce back?
I was actually up in Minnesota this past weekend, and I was watching this in a Minnesota bar with a ton of Vikings fans, and this game was super fun to watch. Diggs looked amazing. I think Diggs is basically matchup proof at this point. He had to have a game with Case Keenum before, and that was at Pittsburgh, who has a pretty decent defense, but he looked fantastic. Kyle Rudolph, on the other hand, one catch for 4 yards on 2 targets. It just seems like Keenum just didn't throw him the ball. It was always Diggs, Thielen, or Cook. Those were the main targets, and really, as they should be. But you would think that once Sam Bradford comes back, Kyle Rudolph is going to get back in the mix. So as long as Keenum is in there, I think I might cool it off of Kyle Rudolph. I actually benched Rudolph in one of my leagues this week, and that actually paid off. But he's someone you're definitely going to want to keep for when Bradford gets back.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about another tight end, one that's was inactive this week. Jordan Reed, chest, shoulder, toe. I guess those are his injuries, but doesn't that remind you of that game you used to play as a kid? Head, shoulders, knees and toes. That is Jordan Reed's injury report.
It's the I call it the elite tight end effect. If it can be injured, it will be.
Yeah, right. Murphy's Law. So something to check on next week, obviously. I don't think anyone's surprised that they drafted him. You kind of had to expect injuries with Jordan Reed. But I want to ask you, Max, first, who's a better waiver ad this week, Vernon Davis or Josh Doxson, who actually had a touchdown this week?
Evan Ingram.
I'm throwing
the list away. I'm just saying Evan Ingram. I'm in a few leagues. If he's available in your league, grab him because the Giants are using him like mad, and they need to. But Josh Doxson, I would say him, but you have that injuries. It's one of those things where it's like the talent is insane with him, and I would say jump on it, ride the train as long as you can, but be ready to have to drop him because he's going to get hurt. And it's also one of those things where it's like, why add a guy with insane talent that you're afraid to play because you're not sure if he's going to be the guy that week, and he has an injury history? So I'd probably, that it's a tough call because Vernon Davis seems safer, but Doxson has the upside. Right. So it depends on your team and what you need. If you have a solid team and you just need a filler tight end, grab Vernon Davis. If your team is you're 1-2, 0-3 by some bad chance, and you need that potential boom player, I'd go Doxson and just hope that he works out for you.
All right. Professor Chris, Kelvin Benjamin, he had a little knee issue. Apparently it's not a major injury. That doesn't make me feel super good because I haven't been getting a lot of production out of Cam Newton. But I want to give this opportunity to you right now just to promote the great debate this week because you have another Panthers wide receiver in the great debate that I think people want to know about.
Yes, it's Paul Richardson versus Devin Funchess this week. I am on the Paul Richardson side here because I'm really not a fan of Devin Funchess, and I'll give you a couple reasons why. This is a guy we've been waiting for him to play to his potential, and it just hasn't happened yet. I know that Ted Ginn was there and Greg Olsen, and Olsen being out is one of the main reasons that Funchess is going to be part of this great debate. So the opportunity is there, but will he take advantage of it? This guy had a fantastic opportunity this week. Yeah. Home against the Saints defense, Panthers down the whole game, Newton needing to throw the ball, but guess what? He played, captain check down and threw it to Christian McCaffrey, who had 9 catches for 101 yards. He just didn't throw it very often to Devin Funchess, and that's not what you want in a guy that you're going to be starting. And Funchess, he was compared to Kelvin Benjamin coming into the 2015 draft. Oh, he's the same size. Oh, he's just as strong, but the dude can only run a 4.7. I had to look that up to. He only ran a 4.7 40. You can have all the sizes in the world, but if you're not fast and you can't get open and you don't have a quarterback who is healthy to throw you the ball, I mean, that's just not good.
4.7 in his size, you might as well just be a tight end.
Right. And one other thing I don't like as well is he's only got 1 red zone target through 3 weeks, which isn't what you're looking for.
I think that's what we were kind of, and Dirty Job was going on about it too. We were kind of expecting him to fill in that tight end sort of role with Olsen going out, but it just didn't happen. He didn't do a good job this week. And I think if Benjamin misses any time, like you said, listen to the great debate, but Professor Chris just made a case for maybe not picking him up and starting him. It might not be the best decision.
We talked about Olsen being out on the Thursday show, right? The weekend preview last week.
Yep.
And when we were bringing up the Panthers game, I said, okay, well, Devin Funchess is going to be a guy who could step up and, step up into Greg Olsen's absence, and nobody did. Yeah. I mean, just Christian McCaffrey got more work, but nobody stepped up. I mean, 4 catches for 58 yards that's not terrible, but at the same time, you would have thought there would have been more opportunity, and Cam just threw it to Christian McCaffrey the entire time.
We also said Christian McCaffrey would get that role. This is something we've all alluded to all season, which kind of stinks for Funchess, but if you guys listen to the show and fans of the show, we told you that McCaffrey's going to get the passing down work, and with their number 1 being gone, he's the guy.
Yeah, and that only goes up more if Benjamin misses any time. Talk about one more wide receiver here. Jeremy Maclin underwent concussion protocol during the game, was cleared to return, did return. He had a injury taken out, returned the previous game as well. I believe it was a shoulder. This was a really bad game for Baltimore. Professor Chris, start with you because I know you're super high on Maclin this year. Is this the time to buy low on him, or are you concerned about this offense after their showing this weekend?
I mean, it's been time to buy low on Maclin since the draft because I still love the guy. I still love his talent. I still love the situation. This was just a really, really bad game. And we're going to get more into the game here in a little bit, but he passed the concussion protocol, went back in the game. It's not his fault that the game was so bad by the Ravens.
All right. Max, I'm going to throw this one at you because I know you love the running backs. Jay Ajayi took himself off the field, scaring owners, but he came back in this week, and it was just a hit to the groin. I think we all know how bad those shots feel. But did you like what you saw on the field from Jay Ajayi this week, Max?
I can't say I did. You can't really like what you saw from the Miami at all. So, I mean, didn't like what Ajayi did, but I wouldn't be afraid to start him going forward because I still think the talent is there. For what I did see of the Miami game, Jay Cutler really wasn't overthrowing people too bad. He was hitting them in the hands or in the chest. It just looked like a lot of bad route running, a lot of miscues, and it looked like the team wasn't in sync.
Yeah,
it looked like like I said, they came in thinking they had a W, and then when the Jets hit them first and hit them again, they weren't mentally ready to post that comeback and hunker down.
Hey, it was just like a nut shot. It was a team-wide nut shot. They got kicked in the balls off the bat, and they couldn't recover.
That's exactly what I had envisioned. Kind of like how Pittsburgh, I just had their hands full with Chicago.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree Chicago isn't that good of a team, and Pittsburgh should have beaten them. They should have thrown the ball all over them.
Oh, we're gonna get in. We're gonna get into those games. We're gonna get into those games. Yeah.
This week was the week of what happened. They should be back on track next week. Don't worry. Start your starters.
Start your starters. Speaking of starters, last bit of news: Melvin Gordon dealing with a little knee issue, a little bone bruise in the knee. This is relatively fresh news as of time of recording this show, so stay tuned. Check in Wednesday and on the mail sack, and check in on the Thursday show to see what's going on. But is there anyone backing up Melvin Gordon worth a waiver ad on the Chargers?
Brandon Oliver.
That's it, right?
Yeah, he was pretty productive. When Danny Woodhead went down, Oliver stepped in and was a beast for a while. But don't forget, I'm not sure if it's considered breaking news. People may know this by now. But Tyler Eifert is expected to miss multiple weeks because he's a bad tight end. I told you all not to draft him.
Yeah, you were right on that one.
I mean, he's not missing multiple weeks because he's bad.
No, he's missing it because, like I said, the man cannot stay on the field, and he gets a ton of touchdowns, but that 2 good games a week, the 2 good games a season he has, isn't worth the 5th or 6th round pick he's getting.
Let's move on to our Week 3 game reviews, and we are going to go through these games bit by bit and give you a lot of fantasy analysis. Alright, let's go through these Week 3 game reviews, and we're going to play a little game kind of intermixed here. We had a fun time last season with this game. We called it Consistent Contributor or One Hit Wonder. And we picked 2 different musical artists, and then I would give you guys a name, and you'd have to tell me, is he going to be a consistent contributor, or was he a one-hit wonder this week? So today's artists are James Brown, the godfather of soul and funk. He is going to be your consistent contributor. And James Blunt, the singer of You're Beautiful, which Professor Chris can hit all the notes on, he will be your one-hit wonder. So when I give you the player's name, you'll call him James Brown or James Blunt, and we'll talk about it. First off, Thursday Night Football. The Rams and the 49ers. Thursday Night Football is back, baby. This was a hell of a game. Injuries and some sloppy play, I think, made this one into a big score event. But the guy I want to talk about most is Sammy Watkins. Professor Chris, is Sammy Watkins James Brown, or is he James Blunt?
He's James Brown, and he's always been James Brown. And I got to say that this may have been my one bad call of the week is benching Sammy Watkins in one of my leagues. And my whole rationale for that was it's a division game and it's on Thursday night. Division games usually are pretty low scoring. Thursday night games never have any offense. And, boy, that was wrong. I am never benching Sammy Watkins again.
All right. Max, your take on Sammy Watkins, James Brown or James Blunt?
Blunt. I don't like Sammy Watkins. I never have liked Sammy Watkins. Cooper Kupp, Tavon Austin's going to get more work. Todd Gurley. I don't like Sammy Watkins. He's great, but they have a lot of weapons there, and He's not Odell Beckham where he demands the ball. You know what I mean?
He is hands down the best wide receiver on that team.
But he's the most underutilized.
Not
short of Tavon Austin, who they said this week was insane. This week was I don't know what the word is. I can't think of it. It was an anomaly. That's the word. The Rams aren't going to score 41 points week to week. They're not that kind of team. The Rams are looking they're looking to get Tavon Austin more involved. They're looking at Todd Gurley. They're looking at Cooper Kupp. Sammy Watkins is the big distraction. He might have a few big plays. Everyone else, it's kind of like Alshon with the Eagles. Alshon's the best receiver on the Eagles, but he makes everyone else better because he's there. He's not necessarily the best play on the Eagles, but because he's there, the other guys are going to get a lot of work. So I think the receiver to own is Cooper Kupp, and I love Todd Gurley and Tavon Austin. It looks like they're trying to get him going and working into this offense. Sammy Watkins isn't a number 1. I think at most he's a low-end number 2.
All right, well, I wanted to ask about, because Watkins is obviously going to be rostered. Cooper Kupp's probably rostered in most leagues. Is Robert Woods? He had a decent game. Is he a good waiver target this week?
He did. Robert Woods did what we all wanted him to do on Buffalo, which was supposed to be good. You were supposed to be a good receiver, and then it never happened. And it's kind of weird they're on the same, I don't know, that worked out the way it did.
Robert Woods is a free agent. He's like, oh yes, Rams, I'm the number 1. Finally, I'm not Sammy Watkins
shows back up.
And Sammy Watkins gets traded there, and he's like, this again?
Yeah, but I think Woods is trying to earn his contract, and he wants another. He looks legit, and that's what I'm saying. They have a lot of receivers there who are actually good. Farrow's still there, and Farrow was a decent receiver last year. But that being said, I see Sammy Watkins as more of a wide receiver 2 than a 1. And I kind of see Woods, if he can maintain this as a wide receiver 2, potentially. Cooper Kupp in a PPR could be a wide receiver 2, potentially. And Tavon Austin could be a crazy flex play with huge boom potential. I mean, crazy bust potential, but huge upside.
Sammy Watkins is still the guy to own there, in my opinion. I don't have any shares of any other guys except for Robert Woods in a league where we play 2 flex, 3 wide receiver, and 9 bench. That's the only league I have Robert Woods.
So deep leagues, he's worth a pickup. Tavon Austin, not worth a pickup. Okay.
I'll give you guys from 0 to 100% on. I'm looking at Yahoo. What percent owned do you think Robert Woods is?
13.
I want to say 7.
Exactly right. 7.
Damn.
Boom.
7% owned.
And he should be at least 30% owned. There are deep leagues out there. There's PPR leagues out there, and if this is foreshadowing what he could be.
But wait, is Jared Goff for real? Or was that just him facing an easy defense? Or is he getting better?
I think he's getting better. I think
he's
Jared
getting
Goff,
better.
He's getting some swagger. He's getting some confidence. It's what you want to see in a young quarterback. Do I think he's going to be this real? Is he Deshaun Watson? No. Watson can make plays, but Goff will be a serviceable quarterback in a 2QB league.
All right.
I think pretty soon we're going to see Jared Goff do his own version of "You like that?"
Does that please you? Does that please you?
I hope not.
I can't wait for
Anyways,
that.
I just went to Carlos Hyde and Pierre Garçon both had great games too.
Yes, they did. But everybody owns them. If they don't, then they're playing in a ridiculously small league.
Yeah, and guys, if you asked me to start about Pierre Garçon, and there was one person in particular who I talked out of starting Pierre Garçon this week, I don't feel bad. He's not going to do this again. This week, I think we can all agree the 49ers and the Rams was an anomaly. I don't expect San Fran to put up 39 points ever again this season. And if they do, it's egg on my face. But
yeah,
this was a Thursday night madness.
Yeah.
Just madness.
If you guys had to pick one matchup of the year to score 80 points, this might have been your last choice.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it was a fun game to watch. Gave me something to do Thursday night while you guys were recording the show. London game, jeez Louise. The Jaguars 44. The Ravens only managed 7 points. Baltimore just looked out of sync. I don't know if it was time difference, the traveling. They couldn't figure out the schedule. They were missing tackles on defense. Their offensive line couldn't protect Flacco. It just looked bad. I don't think this is a legitimate collapse of the team, though. But what do you guys think
figured out
happens?
what's wrong.
What happened?
Yeah, this was. Maybe I have some insider information on this. See, what the Ravens did is they didn't want to fly over to London, so they spent all week finding doppelgangers of each player, and they flew the doppelgangers over to London and put them in the players' jerseys and said, "Here, go try not to lose by too much."
So it was like, instead of Joe Flacco, it was Joe Wacko?
But they lost by too much.
It was Joe Smacko.
Joe Smacko, okay.
Yeah.
Instead of Buck Allen, it was Suck Allen. Is that was the guy on the field?
Suck Allen.
Did you guys see anything in the running backs? I mean, West played, even though we didn't think he was going to. Buck Allen played. He didn't do a whole hell of a lot. Alex Collins was out there, too. A lot of people had, especially Prophet Hoos, had mentioned his name a few times. Anything you liked in that running back game in Baltimore?
I hated everything about it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that backfield at all.
All right.
I hated that West was supposed to be out. I hated that Buck Allen was declared the starter, and I hated that even though Buck Allen is supposed to be the starter, we're going to try to do everything we can to not give him the ball, and then we're going to give it to Alex Collins and Terrence West anyway.
Yeah.
They don't like Buck Allen over in Baltimore.
Nope. Another team telling us lies. All right, our James Brown or James Blunt player is Mercedes Lewis. What do you have? 3 touchdowns for the Jaguars? Is he James Brown or is he James Blunt? Max.
I want to say Brown because Allen Robinson's out. I don't think he's going to have a 3-touchdown week again, but I would be confident starting him. He's definitely a flex play. I'm thinking of Allen Hurns too. Allen Robinson went down, and I feel like the Jags are just better. It's weird. I feel like Blake Bortles maybe felt pressured to throw to Robinson. I don't know. But, no, he's definitely a Brown. I don't expect the production he had this week. I think that's absolutely nuts.
Right.
But I don't like, you can't expect 3 touchdowns, but you can expect him to be good and be someone you're confident in playing every single week.
That's what it's about. Consistent contributor. Doesn't have to have a number 1 hit every week, but he's still on the charts. Chris, you agree? He's Mercedes Lewis and James Brown for you?
100% disagree. This is James Blunt all the way. The last 2 weeks, weeks 1 and week 2, Mercedes Lewis has 2 targets each week for no receptions. He had 5 targets this week in week 3 with 4 catches. Yeah, 3 touchdowns. Oh, that's great. I think he's going to be the number 1 most claimed player off of waivers, and that's going to be a huge mistake. This guy does not need to be owned. He has 3 touchdowns in the last 3 seasons. This is an absolute fluke of a game. Stay away from Mercedes Lewis. If you have number 1 pick on the waiver wire, do not burn it on this guy.
All right. Sound advice from both gentlemen. We'll see what happens in the future. Buccaneers 17, Vikings 34. A lot of people did not expect this game to get out of hand this way. Winston, I didn't like what I saw from him. He was really forcing a lot of passes. They couldn't get the run game going. Djax was the flex play. Mike Evans was mediocre in standard this week. Got you around 13 points in PPR. Julian and Dirty Jobs warned us of Mike Evans being a difficult-to-start guy on the Sunday morning show, which, by the way, if you guys haven't heard, we will take your questions on a live show on Sunday mornings. We start about 11:30. We go to about 12:45 every Sunday morning. We got Dirty Jobs, Julian, Hussein. They take your phone calls. They answer your start-sit questions live, so you get all that stuff ready to go on Sunday mornings. But I want to ask Professor Chris first, did you see anything concerning on the Bucs side offensively, or is this just a matchup? Did the game just got out of hand too fast? What happened?
The game, yeah, it got out of hand in a snap. I mean, the end of at halftime, it was 21-3, which is, you think with Case Keenum coming in, they're not going to be putting up this huge performance on offense. But I think I said this earlier, I was at this brew pub in Minneapolis watching this game, and by the way, it's this place called Union 32 Craft House, kind of like, like Orange Leaf, like the frozen yogurt place where you go and pour your own yogurt and toppings and shit into a cup.
Yes.
Yep. It was like that, but for beer. They had 32 taps. You would get your pint or get your flight or whatever, and you'd go up there and put a little card in, and you would pour whatever beers you wanted, and you would pour them, which was pretty crazy. And since it was a Vikings bar, whenever the Vikings score 32 or more points, you get a free beer, which was pretty great.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Good week to be there.
Yeah, it was super cool. So I'm kind of a Vikings fan now, too, whenever I'm up in Minnesota anyway.
He's a part-time Vikings fan.
The Vikings defense looked great. 3 interceptions, which is pretty awesome. They were playing the Bucs were playing from behind the entire game, and this was purely a product of game flow. Just the Vikings looked amazing, and since the Bucs had to throw, Jaquiz Rodgers got 5 carries for 15 yards.
Yeah, it's a bad game for him. All right, Case Keenum, we talked about him earlier, but Max, we'll start with you. Is Case Keenum James Brown or James Blunt? Keep in mind as long as Bradford is out, because I assume he will take over again when he comes back.
I discussed the matchups for the next 2 weeks, so I'm going to say Blunt. I wouldn't trust him.
All right.
With the Detroit matchup. They're pretty stout defense, and we haven't really seen this from him before, so I don't trust him.
This was his one hit. Yeah. Okay. Professor Chris?
Maybe not one hit. If Bradford's out the season, it could happen again, but I don't trust it going forward.
Keenum does this once a year.
All right. So this is your beautiful moment right now. This was it. Hope you enjoyed it.
Because he did this once last season as well when he was with the Rams, didn't he?
I'm going to take your word for it.
He had one game, and it was actually against Detroit, where he threw 321 for 3 touchdowns and 1 pick. So he does this once a season, and he got this one out of the way. He is going up against the Lions, who he did play very well against last year, but yeah, this is a James Blunt situation.
Motown's not going to let him do that to them again. They're not going to get embarrassed by Case Keenum again. All right, especially, hell, you want to talk about Motown. That's why we're talking James Brown. Let's talk about the Bills, though. Bills 26, Broncos 16. Dirty Jobs was right on about the Broncos. They got tested by a good defense, and it showed. Simeon looked out of sorts. Demaryius was a serviceable flex. Sanders would have been a good play this week had that catch got called back. If that had been ruled a catch, he would have been good. The big surprise here was C.J. Anderson was outtouched by Jamal Charles. Professor Chris, we'll start with you. Is he worth a waiver ad, or is this going to be a timeshare with Booker coming back soon?
No, he's not worth a waiver ad. So maybe someone to keep an eye on, but I'm not adding Charles on any of my teams.
Max, I want to talk to you, Bill. LaShawn McCoy, are you worried at all? Not putting up the numbers that we expected from as early as we drafted him yet.
He's gone up against two pretty stout defenses. I'd be fine rolling with them in the future.
Maybe a buy low. You think at this point? Would you trade for him?
See, that's the issue. I personally wouldn't sell him. A buy low, I believe, would be like Lamar Miller would be a buy low. Because he's not putting up numbers that we kind of expected for a second-round or third-round pick. But like LaShawn McCoy was tested, and not even him. The Bills were tested these past 2 weeks against stout defenses, and they kind of had to abandon the run game for the most part. But I think in one of my leagues, he put up 16 points, which is all right for me. Going forward, I don't expect him to be a slouch. Like, it's LaShawn McCoy. He's your starter. He's your stud. And I wouldn't accept anything less for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Besides him,
it'd be hard to imagine what you could offer that would make me be willing to trade him.
Right. Yeah, and he just played two of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
And he really only plays one more great defense once, and that's week 12 at Kansas City. But so the rest of the season, he's got Atlanta, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, Oakland, Jets, New Orleans, Chargers, then Kansas City, Patriots, Colts, Dolphins, Patriots, Dolphins.
Yeah,
none of those other
should be
teams
fine. The rest,
all right.
Yeah.
Hang tight.
So buy him low if you can.
Things look
Don't
good.
sell it.
You just have to hope that the LaShawn McCoy owner isn't savvy enough to realize that he did just go back to back with two of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, it's crazy how people are down on him and aren't looking at this. Might be like, I haven't looked at defensive rankings or anything like that in a couple weeks, but just looking at his schedule, this might be the easiest schedule that a top 5 running back has.
Well, think about this too. If you look at like Ezekiel Elliott, who did nothing against Denver, people hold Elliott in higher regard than LaShawn McCoy.
Right.
No one's worried about Elliott. You know what I mean? McCoy put up bigger numbers.
No one's going to trade you Elliott away. No one's trading Elliott away right now. The only reason I brought up McCoy was because the 2 games back-to-back wasn't, super. Plus, you can always kind of throw in there like, injury history. You kind of put that in someone's ear, and you might be able to convince someone that he's a tradable asset.
If someone was losing confidence, and I could see them like, Leonard Fournette's looking good.
Yeah.
Gillislee, maybe. I could see it, but if you're listening to the show, just hold fast. Don't do it. He'll be fine.
All right, quick yes, no. Is Charles Clay a waiver wire ad this week if he's not already picked up?
I think every tight end in the NFL is kind of someone you should own. They're all kind of the same.
Except for Eifert.
Short of like...
And Ebron.
Yeah, no, don't own Eifert or Ebron.
Okay, we'll get to them. The Colts 31, Browns 28. The Browns were down in this game. They were down 31-14 in the fourth, but they had the garbage time scores made this game look closer than it was. The Colts dominated. Brissett, we already talked about. He looked good. He looked sharp, accurate. He averaged more than 10 yards per attempt. He finally got T.Y. Hilton involved. He ran for 2 touchdowns. Was this his James Blunt game of the season? This is like Case Keenum kind of thing. He's going to have one great game. Or can you call him a James Brown for 2 more weeks? Max, you had some things to say about him. What do you say?
I think this could be a James Brown situation. And like I said, if he does ball out, they might actually give him more time and give Andrew Luck more time to rest. The issue is next week he's going against Seattle. Now, as much as I said Seattle was bothering me, the Colts have a horrible O-line. That's going to be an issue. And then he has San Fran, which should be a little less of an issue. He should be fine against them. So next week I wouldn't start him. Against San Fran, I'd consider it. But then he's at Tennessee. October 6th. Tennessee has a decent defense this year. Again, the Colts O-line is really bad. It's one of those things where it's like, is this a mirage? Is he this good? I think he's this good. But this current lineup with Seattle, San Fran's defense can be good when they want to be. Tennessee's defense is decent. Jacksonville is a good defense. Then Cincinnati is a good defense. This isn't an easy road for the Colts these next few weeks, so I wouldn't add him.
All right. Professor Chris, do you agree? You see a James Blunt or a James Brown situation?
I mean, are we considering James Brown being he's going to do about what he did, about 250 yards and a couple touchdowns?
Yeah, consistent contributor. You're not going to get a clunker.
I think he can do that the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, a couple things I was encouraged by was Frank Gore getting the work, 25 carries. I know he didn't do a whole lot. He got 57 total yards, but he did get a touchdown, but 25 carries. The work is there, but One of the guys I am I don't really panic in fantasy, but I am very worried about is Isaiah Crowell, because if there was a game for him to break out, it was this one.
Absolutely. Why aren't they using him?
Yeah,
I don't know. He's the best running back that they have.
I don't get this at all.
Yeah, no idea.
Like, we talked about Lamar Miller earlier, and I don't know if we're going to touch on it in this discussion.
Oh, we will.
But there are some running backs in the NFL that aren't being used, and it's very confusing to me. And it's not like a situation where it's like, oh, you have James White and Gillislee. James White's really good, and so is Gillislee. It's like Isaiah Crowell can do it all. Get him on the field. Like, he was your team last year. Why are you not using him? It's insane. I don't get it.
If you could get him for a song, would you trade for him at 100%. This point and hope that he does get the usage, or the usage doesn't scare you away?
See, that's the thing, though. If I'm trading him for a song, I'm not going to use him. Like, I picked up Carson, right? Seattle's new running back.
Yeah.
I would probably trade Carson for Isaiah Crowell.
I'd
have to look at the matchups more.
That's what I want to know.
But I feel like, I'd probably go for Crowell there, because it's one of those things where at some point you have to wake up and you have to realize who your starting running back is. I know I say this a lot, but much like last year with Latavius Murray, they tried to get away from him and they realized they couldn't. They needed that power back. They needed Latavius Murray on the field because he was their best running back. I don't know if they're trying to run like a West Coast style offense with Duke and their new quarterback Kaiser, but Crowell is the best running back on that team.
As long as they're not using him and they're letting Kaiser throw to the wrong team, I'm starting defenses every week against the Browns. That's what I know about that team. What about Gore? Like, if I had Gore, would you trade Gore for Crowell at this point? Or
I would.
Stick with Gore?
I think Marlon Mack will eventually take over that backfield.
Yeah, I'm still going to try to buy Crowell low, but I am not going to buy Crowell hoping he will start. I'm not giving up any starting pieces for him, but I would trade Gore for Crowell.
Okay. Well, yeah, because Gore's probably not your a starting piece for you at this point.
Right.
No.
So like a flex.
Now, I will say, if you're in a league where you get like a half point for rushing attempt, because I have one of those, Gore might not be bad, because 25 carries, that's 12.5 points just for rushing attempt.
That is pretty good. That's a good floor right there.
We're still waiting on Josh Gordon to come back.
Yeah.
No, shut up.
Is Duke Johnson, if he's on the waiver wire, though, is he worth a look this week, you think?
No way he's on the waiver wire, but yes, if he is.
Okay. I 100% agree with that.
All right, Dolphins, Jets, we already talked about this game. Jets beat them 26. I didn't have any James Brown or James Blunt guys in this game. We talked about Ajayi, we talked about Cutler, we talked about all that stuff. Miami going to London next week. Pay attention to that. Falcons, Lions. This was a pretty good game. Falcons 30, Lions 26. A lot of people are going to feel like the Lions got screwed on that last play. Golden Tate owners are not going to be happy about it either. Eric Ebron had a bad game. Max saw it coming.
Eric Ebron sucks.
The one thing I want to talk about, though, this concerns me. Julio Jones. I love Julio Jones. I yell his name when I say it. I'm not going to do it now. But has the torch officially been passed from Julio to Freeman as the scoring option, the main weapon in Atlanta? Because Julio's only gotten you 6, 10, and 9 points in standard the last 3 weeks. No touchdowns yet. He's better in PPR, 10, 15, and 16 points. But that's not wide receiver 1 numbers in PPR, is it? Would you trade for him? Would you give him up? Like, what are we doing with Julio Jones right now? This one concerns me.
If you could trade for Julio Jones, I would. If you had Hogan, or maybe that dude's desperate, get him. The Lions run defense. And I'm just saying, no, I understand, but if you could, maybe. But the Lions don't have the best run defense, and they have a really good secondary. As we saw, Matt Ryan got picked off a bunch, and I feel like that's why they immediately just went to the run game, because Freeman was just tearing off huge chunks. And he's not a big dude. He runs like a truck, but he's not that big of a dude. If his workload stays the same as it is right now, and he's running as hard as he is, I could see an injury in the near future.
Freeman, injury. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Professor Chris, waiver targets, Sanu or Gabriel? Who do you like more in a waiver target if you got to grab somebody?
Oh, if I had to grab one of those two, it's going to be Mohamed Sanu. But I want to go back real quick to what you said about buying or trading for Julio.
Yeah, please.
The issue with that is that people who are trying to trade Julio want a Julio Jones return for the guy. And the people who are trying to buy him aren't going to want to spend that, that high of high a price. So
my argument with you, if you were the Julio Jones owner and I was the Chris Hogan owner, I would say, you know what? Hogan's the only guy there. They're not using Cooks. Even last year, Julio Jones, when he put up big numbers, it was every other week. Are you looking for consistency, or are you looking for a big week? Because I can give you consistency and good point production.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's the name carries so much weight to it. Chris Hogan doesn't carry any weight to his name. Julio Jones, you're paying for the name. I mean, at the same time, like, he's still being great. 7 for 91 on 12 targets. He's still getting targeted plenty of times. He doesn't have a red zone target yet, but I mean, it's frustrating that he's not getting into the end zone, but it's not like he's not putting up solid games. The touchdowns are going to come, but you can't buy him for his performance right now. People still want, they want the number 3 overall whatever draft pick price for this guy.
It was just a thought. I think if he throws up one more clunker of a week, maybe your chances of getting him in a trade are a little bit better. But it was a trend I saw.
Would you trade Jordy for Julio?
Not right now, no.
I'd still rather have Julio.
I'd go like
Hopkins.
Hopkins.
That's what I'm saying. But if you were the Jordy owner, would you trade him for Julio? Because I'd make that offer and see if they bite.
I'd go like Hopkins and a piece maybe for Julio. Try to swing Julio that way or something like that. I don't know. It was just a trend I saw coming, and just keep an eye on it. Just keep an eye on it. All right, no James Brown or James Blunt for this game. I was going to say Gabriel, but I have a feeling he's a James Blunt kind of guy.
Well, he did it last year, so who knows?
Yeah, he did it last year. We'll see. All right, Giants and Eagles. This was a game. 27 Eagles, Giants 24. Not quite what we've been getting from Wentz, but he was under a lot of pressure. I think he can recover, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I love Wentz.
Now this one's going to be tough to say. LeGarrette Blount, is he a James Brown or a James Blunt? Is Blunt a Blunt or is he a Brown? Max,
he's a Blunt.
He's a Brown, depending on what you want him to be a Brown
I want
for.
consistency.
If he's a flex and you're looking for a touchdown, James Brown. If you're looking for like 10 points out of him, James Brown. If you're looking for an RB2 or a number 1 RB, he's a Blount. He's a Blount.
All right, Professor Chris, you said he's a James Blunt. Why?
Yep. He's not going to get used as much as you want him to get used. I mean, he might score a touchdown every second or third game for you, but I don't think his usage is going to go up just because Darren Sproles is out. I think the other guys are going to see an increase in work. Like Wendell Smallwood is going to see an increase in work. They're probably going to throw it more. And I don't like LeGarrette Blount this year. And if you guys listening can't tell, Max and I very rarely agree on things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was right last year about him, and they didn't turn away from him when Sproles went down.
But just
Smallwood hasn't been the running back they wanted. I just don't see them going away from him. He's not the every down back, but he's a short yardage guy and the red zone guy.
I just think you're going to be able. Your team probably has better options on it already.
As just a side note to the listeners, I totally see how you might be listening and you think, well, these guys don't agree. This show must suck. But it's not true. Max has a very specific style of playing fantasy, as does Professor Chris, and listeners, you'll fall probably within one of those two camps, and you'll get the good advice depending on the style of play that you do for fantasy. So disagreement is good in some points.
Shows where everybody just agrees with each other all the time are just boring.
I mean, Chris makes good points. I could agree with him on everything because I do think he has valid reasons why he's saying what he says.
Yeah.
But we have different styles of playing fantasy.
That's what I just fucking said.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We can make this show boring if you want. We can make this show quick and boring. We can be done in 15 minutes.
Can we talk about how great Zach Ertz has been? And I've been calling that since like March.
That was a good one.
Proud of you.
You get a sticker for that one, Professor Chris. Very nice call there.
He is so good.
Yeah. He is the definition of a James Brown. Consistent every week, always on the charts, delivering every week. We like that. I want to talk just 2 seconds. Eli Manning looks to be getting his act together. Brandon Marshall got involved. Sterling Shepard scored. Odell Beckham Jr. looks to be healthy. Is Eli Manning a quarterback you're picking up if you're a Cam Newton owner specifically? Because I'm not. This is a question for me because I'm not happy with Cam Newton so far this year.
Nope. Not until I see more out of Eli. He looks like
game? Okay.
He looks like they need to sign Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, okay, whatever. So we need another game or two to be confident in Eli. All right, I dig that. Saints 34, Panthers 13. Breeze on the road. What the hell? 22 out of 29, 220, and 3 touchdowns? I don't know what happened. Apparently he's good on the road this week. Break down the running back situation for me, guys. Ingram, Peterson, Kamara. Which one would you trade for? Which one would you drop? And which one would you add if they're on the waiver wires?
You can drop AP. I've been trying not to say that because I wanted to like Adrian Peterson so much, but it's just not there. It is just not there. I mean, he's got 6 rushing attempts, 8 rushing attempts, 9 rushing attempts. They're just not using him. Ingram and Kamara are the guys. You're not even going to be able to trade Adrian Peterson.
No, I don't think so. Coleman scored 2 weeks in a row now. So he is our James Brown or James Blunt. And if he's on waivers, do you add him? Max, is Coleman, James Brown, or James Blunt?
He's a rental till Snead gets back. I liked him a lot last year, but I don't expect the production to stay. He'll fall back into the depths. So he returns.
He only had 1 catch, and it happened to be a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, I liked him last year. He showed a lot of promise in the preseason, but he is a filler. He's the guy who got open because the other guys were covered. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So,
Yep. Well, people will see the stat and they'll say, "Oh, touchdown 2 weeks in a row," and they'll go after him if he's on waivers, or they'll start to start him. But okay, I agree with that. The Bears 23, Steelers 17. Once again, we cannot trust the coaches and what they say because apparently nothing was bothering Jordan Howard. He went nuts. Cohen had a good game as well. Almost had a touchdown at the end. Got called back. That would have been an awesome fantasy day. But
I was so happy that got called back.
Oh my God, it was.
I was so happy.
It sucked for a lot of people. That started him. The only thing I can say about it, let's just take the running back game of Chicago. I don't see anything else happening on that team. Is that a James Brown or a James Blunt? Chicago running game. Consistent, or was this the best they can do?
James Brown for me. This is turning into a Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman, where you can start either guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all you want to start on Chicago at this point, I think.
Yeah, I'm not against starting Kendall Wright some weeks. I know he didn't really have a great game this week, but I'm not against still having Kendall Wright on my team. Zach Miller, maybe. I do like Zach Miller a lot. He's been great in the past. He just hasn't been there yet. But the only guys I'd be excited to play are Howard and Cohen. Those are the only ones you can expect anything from.
Max, did you see anything on the Steelers side of the ball that caught your attention?
Yeah, they sucked. I don't expect that to happen again. I think this is very much like the Miami Jets game, where they came in thinking they had an easy win, and they got punched in the mouth and couldn't come back from it. Expect your studs to be studs next week. They'll right the ship.
All right.
Le'Veon Bell's not used to playing the first few weeks of a season. So.
That's true, yeah.
Well, and you got to think, I don't want to get political on the show, but with all the quote-unquote controversy going on in the NFL right now, we had Big Ben saying he was up all night and even cried over his decision to do things or not do things. So the teams were distracted. And I think that was probably another large part to what played in this crazy weekend. Teams were distracted. They weren't there for football. They were there for whatever they were there for.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like their heads were fully in it.
Yeah, thanks, Obama. Thanks a lot.
This was Bush's fault, Steve.
Yeah, oh yeah. Bill Clinton, thanks a lot.
Are you sure it wasn't Nixon's fault? Because, I mean...
Thanks a lot, George.
I am not a crook.
Thanks a lot, Lincoln. Really appreciate it. Legacy.
Yeah, thanks, Jefferson.
Yeah. Let's move on.
All right, the Patriots and Texans game. This was one of those games where a lot of people thought Patriots going to roll over them. Turned into a fight, and especially Deshaun Watson. Fantastic game versus the Pats at home. Finished 22 of 33, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 41 yards on the ground, 2 interceptions. But I think the second one, it was on a Hail Mary, so I can't really count that. Deshaun Watson, is he a James Brown or a James Blunt? Professor Chris, go.
I think it's still too early to say, but I think you're going to, if you can expect about 250, 2 and 2 from him each week. I don't think he's going to throw for 300 very often. The rushing yards are going to be there, but this just once again shows that the Patriots are struggling on defense.
Yeah. And we thought they'd be really strong this year, and the game plan usually to take somebody out of the game didn't look like they had it together this week. So you're saying James Brown for within modest expectations. Max, do you agree on Deshaun Watson?
I'm going to say within modest expectations, Brown.
Okay. Not a super
Yeah, he'll
tough.
probably be fairly consistent, but not consistent great.
Now, I do have a question for you, Chris. We kind of touched on this in the pre-show discussion. Lamar Miller,
Give him the ball.
he's more productive than Foreman. Foreman had a great catch. It was like good, but they're not throwing to Lamar Miller, and that's kind of his thing, which I don't understand why they aren't throwing to their receiving back. But 14 carries to Foreman's 8, and they were good carries. He's putting up good averages. Why will they not use him?
I don't get it either, man. Lamar Miller needs to be getting the ball.
This is what we saw in Miami. Miami, everyone thought, Lamar Miller's going to break out as soon as he leaves. Last year, new team, didn't do well. But Miami, he'd get 14 carries. And you'd be like, he had 14 carries for 60-something yards and a touchdown. Like, he had a good game. Why won't they give him the ball more? And you're seeing more of that in Houston. And I don't know if they think he's weak, if they think, like, he isn't capable. But it's just one of these things where it's like, yeah, we understand it. Like, we get it. You have a decent young running back in Foreman. Give your starter the ball.
Yeah, but guys,
Don't be dumb.
But what you see and what the coaches see and what is reality is that Lamar Miller is not getting the work that we think he should get, and that's what shows up on a fantasy score card.
Yeah,
so,
but the thing is, he's not getting the work, but he is doing better than the guy they're giving the work to.
All right, but
that's why it's so frustrating, because he is a really good running back, and he's just not getting the work, and we don't know why. And that's why it's so frustrating to own Lamar Miller on any fantasy roster, because you want to play him because the talent is absolutely there, but the opportunity just isn't. And
there's no reason for it not to be there.
Right. I can't come up with a rational explanation for why they're not giving Lamar Miller the ball 50% of the time.
Okay.
Like Frank Gore, I can understand, like, gets carries spelled from him because, he's old. And realistically, Frank Gore, in the NFL terms, is an older player. But when you have a player it'd be like if Melvin Gordon got 14 carries and Brandon Oliver got 8. And you'd be like, well, why'd you even give Brandon Oliver 8 if Melvin Gordon was out, like, he's here? Like, he's doing well. Why aren't you giving him the carries? Well, we like Oliver. Yeah, but Melvin Gordon, though. Like,
the Texans,
he's doing better.
They would not be 1-2 if they were giving Lamar Miller 25 touches.
Lamar Miller would be doing work for them, or not even 25 touches. If you want if you want Foreman to get touches, that's fine. But when you're going to throw the ball, give it to the back who kind of made his name through the air. Lamar Miller is a great receiving back. Do that. Lamar Miller, not as good as Shady. I'm not going to compare the two, but he's similar in his play style.
Guys,
he's a receiving halfback, and this is pissing me off. And I'm sorry we're wasting time on it, but I needed to say it.
I don't disagree with you at all. Either one of your points are both valid, but the reality is that's not how he's being used. So for fantasy owners out there, do they hang on to
Bill
him?
O'Brien.
Yeah,
they can't
Bill
fire
O'Brien.
him.
Listen to the Sleeper Wire show.
But as a fantasy,
he'll start winning more games.
As a fantasy owner, do I keep Lamar Miller? Do I continue starting him, or do I just have to come to grips with this is how he's going to be used, and I either put him in the flex spot because that's the best I'm going to get, or I try to move him out?
You drafted him probably 3rd round, so he's probably your number 2.
Yeah.
Unless you got a Carson off the waiver wire, unless you got Dalvin Cook later, Kareem Hunt later, he's going to be an every week start for you. And you just have to hope Houston comes to their senses.
Got to gut it out. All right.
Yeah, if he doesn't start getting more carries, you might have to start thinking about benching him, because the only decent matchups he's got are Cleveland in Week 6, San Francisco Week 14, and then the Colts twice.
I can't believe you just admitted that.
Tennessee, Kansas City, Seattle, Rams, Arizona, Baltimore, Jacksonville.
I can't believe you just admitted that. Cooks or Hogan, real quick. Who is the start that you have more trust in between Cooks and Hogan? Max, go first real quick.
Hogan.
Hogan.
Yep, I agree. Seahawks and Titans. The Titans pulled this one out, 33-27. They look really good. Lots of folks were fading them based on the matchups, but Mariota was on point. The Murray-Henry thing really screwed up a lot of fantasy owners this week. What do we take away from that debacle, the DeMarco Murray thing, Professor Chris?
Quit panicking on DeMarco Murray. I was telling people all week, there's so much Derrick Henry hype, and he's the number 1 handcuff to own. If you have Murray, you have to have Derrick Henry, blah, blah, blah. But it is still DeMarco Murray's job. He's not going to lose it when he's playing. Then he is the starter. He's the one who's going to get the ball. Yeah, sure, Henry may be a good backup, but that's exactly what he is. And this is just it pretty much irritated me all week with how people were, I'm benching DeMarco Murray and playing Henry. And no, that's stupid. Like, you still, if DeMarco Murray is playing, you play DeMarco Murray, not Henry.
Rashard Matthews, Max, James Brown or James Blunt?
This is hard. Based on last year's numbers, Brown.
No, based on
I
this year,
expect him to be used. I know, that's the issue though. They have Eric Decker now, and
who's also not doing shit.
Who's also not doing much. But I feel like I know he's the number one there. I want to say Brown because I expect consistent wide receiver 3 numbers out of him. That's what he should have been drafted as. So if he's your wide receiver 3, be confident in him every week. I'd be fine with that. But if you're looking for a wide receiver 2 or even like a boomer bust 1, definitely a Blunt.
All right. I want to thank Pete Carroll for the clarity on the Jimmy Graham situation. He ended up starting, playing well. A lot of people were thinking of, if they hadn't, dropping him last week, which was dumb. I want to say Carson seems to be the guy right now. Is it safe to drop Lacey and maybe even drop Rawls? Because really all we saw was Chris Carson and CJ Procise.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to drop both. I don't have Rawls in any leagues. I drafted him in probably 4 or 5 as a bench piece because I thought he still might get the starting job. But him and Lacey shouldn't be owned at this point.
All right, let's move on to the Packers and the Bengals. Packers pulled it out 27-24 against Cincinnati. What did you guys see in Mixon when he was on the field? Seemed to get a pretty good workload. And when do you think we can start starting him? Is that going to be sooner? Next week?
Next week. Yeah. You want to hear why?
Hell yeah, I do.
18 carries. They got a new offensive coordinator who said, hey, I don't like the way you've been running things. Joe Mixon is our best running back. We are going to give Joe Mixon the ball. 18 carries. He got 3 catches for 39 yards on 3 targets, and he looked great. I don't see why they would go away from Joe Mixon at this point. You can start him.
Max, you agree with this?
Sure.
And guess what? He's at Cleveland next week.
Nice. You know what? I'd start Mixon. They're leaning that way. I still like Gio. I still like Hill, but my opinion doesn't matter. Go Mixon.
All right. Geronimo Allison is our James Brown, James Blunt player. Had a pretty good game if Cobb misses more time. Max is Geronimo Allison, James Brown, James Blunt.
Blunt.
Chris, you agree?
Also agree.
All right. And Ty Montgomery had sort of an off game, potentially a buy low, but I don't think anyone's selling. Chiefs beat the Chargers 24-10. KC defense was really strong this week. Rivers threw 3 interceptions. Travis Kelce, Hunter Henry, tight ends, did nothing. What the hell happened here? Chris?
Hey, don't dog Travis Kelce. He put up 1 catch for 1 yard. And didn't Hunter Henry put up another goose egg?
Gates isn't going away. This is a situation where, unlike Lamar Miller, you have a young guy who's good. Use him. Gates, you broke the record. No one's breaking it for a long time.
Go chill, dude.
Go home.
Go to the
Jason
golf
Witten
course.
probably isn't going to break your record, and he's probably the closest.
Yeah.
Go home.
The thing that sucks is that the Chargers were down, too, so they had to throw the ball, but this is 2 out of 3 weeks where Hunter Henry didn't even have a target.
That's really not good, and we were all expecting him to see an increase in workload this year. He was good last year. So
yeah, they were down the entire game. Phillip Rivers threw the ball 40 times. Not one of those went to Hunter Henry.
Yeah,
but you got to think, Phillip Rivers threw the ball 40 times, but it didn't look good.
No.
Any of the throws. They may not have gone to Hunter Henry, but he was looking for his receivers the whole time, and the receivers weren't helping him out much.
So are you dropping Hunter Henry?
Yeah, I'm dropping him.
All right, the one guy that did do some work was Travis Benjamin. Professor Chris, is Travis Benjamin a James Brown or a James Blunt?
I want to say James Brown so much because I do love his situation, and he was one of my targets going into last year's draft. But it's James Blunt for me. There's too many options there.
All right, Max, you agree with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I've been preaching Benjamin on the show since the beginning of the season, a little bit into the preseason. I need to see how their wide receiving core shakes out. I mean, Keaton's obviously number 1,
right,
but their number 2 is definitely a toss-up.
Yeah, Tyrell Williams, some people thought. Travis Benjamin, some people thought. So if either is on your waiver wire, I think they're worth a speculative ad. All right, finally, the Redskins beat the Raiders 27-10. This was a horrible game for Carr, Cooper, Crabtree, and Lynch. It was just bad. Of all these guys, Which one do you think is the best buy low trade target? And, out of those, let's say Cooper, Crabtree, and Lynch. Any of those that you want to trade for? Anyone you think you could get low right now, Max?
You could probably get Cooper low. You could probably get Lynch low. PPR, I'd go for Cooper. If I need a running back, I'd go for Lynch.
What kind of offer would you make? Give me just like a kind of range, a type of player.
Cooper, I'd offer Hogan. Maybe Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I was thinking Thielen too. Yeah.
He's not doing much. Like Cooper, that's the issue. Cooper is not the number one we thought he would be. Crabtree is, and the Crabtree owner knows that.
Right.
It's just that the Cooper owner doesn't know that yet. And if you have Thielen on your bench, you're not starting him, or if you have Hogan, you got him off the waiver wire, they might bite on Cooper. If I was going for Lynch and I had to trade a running back for him, maybe Gillisley, and hope that Lynch, kind of solidifies the workload of Frank Gore, and hope that Lynch breaks out more.
Yeah.
Lynch is the guy. He's the only one that you can buy low on.
Yeah, Cooper technically is a buy low if you're offering Hogan, because I feel like when Amendola is back, Hogan's going to go back into obscurity.
I would say production-wise, I'd rather have Hogan, but Amari Cooper is a name, and I don't know why people are drafting him in the second round every single year, because he never performs like that.
Well, the thing is, he's a name. He's young, so there's still time for the breakout. And in college, and he shows he was great, and he shows flashes of being great. I'm not arguing covered like a number one.
Yeah, I'm not arguing the talent at all.
Crabtree being their number one has done nothing to help Cooper, because Cooper is still double covered and covered like a number one. If Cooper gets open, that ball goes to him and it's a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. I think Amari Cooper is the guy you would have to pay the most for, aside the Crabtree owner knows what he has, but the Amari Cooper owner is still thinking, I got this guy in the second round. You're going to pay the price for him.
That's why I think I got this guy in the second round 3 weeks in a row. He hasn't done much for me. You're offering Chris Hogan, who just had 2 big games. Yeah. Give him.
Yeah. It depends who you're dealing with on that one.
I just think the Cooper owner is going to want more than that. Even if he's not worth it, the Cooper owner is going to want more, which kind of sucks.
All right, let's hit Chris Thompson. Dude's been balling past couple weeks in terms of fantasy score.
Pick him up. Get him. Whoever it takes.
He's picked up. But is Chris Thompson a James Brown or a James Blunt rest of the season? What do you think? Consistent, or is this coming to an end, Max?
He's not going to get you 35 points every week in PPR, but I see him like Jarvis Landry last year, where Landry got 10 catches a game. So no matter what, Landry had 15 points every game,
consistent.
And that's going to be his role.
That's what you want. All right. Professor Chris, you think he's a James Brown in terms of consistency?
No, I don't. And I do think he's someone who does need to be owned. I think he's owned in 76% of leagues, but the dude has had 2 games that really aren't going to happen very often. I mean, in week 2, he had a great fantasy game, but only 3 carries for 77 yards. One of those was a goal line carry. The other one, he broke a long one, which doesn't happen very often for running backs. So he only had 6 total touches. This week, he only had 8 carries, which is about, you can probably expect 5 to 8 from Chris Thompson, and 6 catches, which is pretty good for PPR, but 150 yards on those 6 catches, that's not happening again either. So I think he should be owned, but I think it's Samaje Perine who his hand got destroyed, which is why he fumbled the ball. It's still going to be the Rob Kelly show when he gets back.
I'm not sure about that. Mac Brown looked okay this week, and we talked about the Redskins not having any loyalty with their running backs. He might become the starter at some point too, so I'm not so sure I feel good about anybody in that backfield except for Thompson at this point.
I'm just saying 77 carries and 2 touchdowns 77 yards and 2 touchdowns on 3 carries, and 150 yards on 6 catches is probably not going to happen again.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The numbers are exceptional, but I think the work could be consistent, which is what I'm kind of looking for. Okay. Last, real quick, yes or no, is Terrell Pryor a bust this year?
It's hard to call him a bust after 3 weeks, but he does not look good. He looks lazy, and Kirk Cousins and him are not on the same page.
All right, real quick, We are going to talk about waiver wire pickups and buy low, sell high. We've talked about a lot of these guys already, but we're going to start with Professor Chris. He's got some names he hasn't mentioned yet. Professor Chris, who are your waiver wire pickups this week?
My two, I've got Matt Breida for we're backup running back for the 49ers, and really, he's not the best running back. He did get 3 catches for 20 yards last week, which is pretty good, but it really the only reason is because Carlos Hyde has a history of getting injured, and if he does, Matt Breida is going to be the guy to step up. My other guy is Paul Richardson, and I could give you a ton of stats on Paul Richardson, but I'm going to say go listen to the great debate.
All right, Max, your waiver wire pickup targets this week?
My waiver wire pickup targets this week are going to be Evan Ingram or Charles Clay, to be completely honest. I'm kind of in a tight end mode, which sounds weird, but Ingram is almost the number 2 target for the Giants right now, and if you need a solid PPR look, he's the guy you want to look at. He's a big threat in the red zone, and Charles Clay 2 weeks in a row is looking really good, and he seems to be a great check down on a team that wants to lose but refuses to.
All right. And my waiver wire pickup, the first one is Geronimo Allison. We may have called him a James Blunt in the show, but I believe in the situation he's in right now, it's like James Blunt in a collaboration with Lady Gaga. I want a piece of that offense. If Cobb's missing time, I can get a piece of that offense on the waiver wire. I'm doing it. My other one is quarterback. I'm grabbing Eli Manning or Case Keenum this week, depending on how Bradford's situation, especially if I'm struggling at quarterback. I see these guys as having some upside as a Cam Newton owner. That's what I'm looking for right now. All right, Chris, Professor Chris, your buy low, sell high players of the week.
Buy low is T.Y. Hilton if you still can. If you've got someone who you can talk into, Luck isn't going to be back until week 6, which week 6, doesn't that sound like a long way away? Right, yeah, week 6, the season just started. Yeah. That's only 2 more games without Andrew Luck, hopefully. Right, hopefully. So if you can still buy him low, I would do that. Otherwise, I know you have this one listed in the show notes as yours, but since you've got 3, I'm going to steal one, is Jeremy Maclin.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with that rough game behind him, and you can kind of say, look, he's getting hurt every week, so concussion, shoulder.
Yeah. And if you have wide receiver depth, sell high on Julio Jones. It feels weird to say sell Julio Jones, but I have a league where I've got T.Y. Hilton and Golden Tate and Stephon Diggs, and then a couple other fringe wide receiver 1-2s, and my quarterback was Trevor Siemian. So I was thinking maybe I can package Julio Jones and get like Aaron Rodgers and then a piece. Rodgers and then maybe Hopkins. Maybe someone will bite on the name.
Yeah, it's a very good possibility. Max, who are you looking to buy low and sell high this week?
I'm looking at Terrell Pryor to buy low. I do think there's going to be upside. I think he's going to connect with Kirk Cousins. He's a talented receiver, and I do like Kirk as a QB, and I think they'll work it out, and he'll be very productive. And he's been slacking, and people expected much, much more for him. I do have another buy low, and it's definitely Crowell. He's not being used, and he's a buy low you sit on. He's a buy low that you don't necessarily start right away. You kind of just sit and wait because he has that potential of being a number 1 running back for you. My sell high, it's a tough one. I'd have to say Chris Thompson. You could probably get a very good pick for him right now. He's looking like an absolute stud. Or Brissett. If you're in a 2 QB league, you're not the Andrew Luck owner. The Luck owner could be hurting a lot, and you might be able to get something back for Brissett as a short-term rental for him, who just came off an amazing game.
If you can.
Yeah, I like that.
If you can.
I like that one. All right, my buy low is Amari Cooper. We've talked about him. I think he is a very good trade target. You could probably get him for a nice little package of maybe 2-3 players, and I think he will be pretty consistent down the line, although not everybody agrees with me. My sell high is going to be Sammy Watkins. I think he's a James Blunt kind of player. He might have 1 or 2 good games this year, but I don't see him being that consistent for me. If I have him, I drafted him late. I was waiting for this breakout game, and I'm going to try to get everything I can for him. I'm selling high on Sammy Watkins this week. All right, that is it for the show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Head over to SleeperWire.com for our rankings, podcasts, submit questions to our website. And if our podcasts, our live shows, our Sunday Blitz, or any of our website questions we answered for you have helped you draft a winning team or win a weekly matchup, we ask you make a donation to our cause. Please, our friend and league mate Rob Canham has chronic Lyme disease, and it's a real bitch to live with. And every single dollar you guys can share pushes us a little bit closer to the treatments that'll really help him live a normal life again. And that's our goal for this show. Everything we do for this goal for Rob. So please visit the page on our website, sleeperwire.com, or go directly to his GoFundMe, gofundme.com/RobJR. All right, you can follow us and reach us on SleeperBot and Fantasy Life at SWSteve, at Professor Chris, at MaxSW on SleeperBot, and on Twitter, you can reach us at SleeperWire Show, at Professor Chris. That's it, guys. I'm so tired of talking, but thanks so much for listening. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Max, for being on the show and tuning to the Mail Sack on Wednesday night and the great debate this week. Good luck, week 4. Say peace, Chris.
Peace.
Later.
Fantasy Football Show will help you win your fantasy football championship. Sleeper Wire, Friday 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Sleeper Wire on Dash Talk.